What is geology? Geology is the study of the Earth, including its composition, structure, processes, and history. It encompasses many different disciplines, including mineralogy, petrology, paleontology, and tectonics, and it is concerned with understanding the Earth's materials and processes, as well as its past and present. Geologists use a variety of techniques and tools, such as field mapping, drilling, and remote sensing, to study the Earth's surface and subsurface, and they use this information to inform our understanding of natural resources, hazards, and environmental issues. Scope of geologist. Salaries for geologists can vary widely depending on factors such as location, experience, and type of employer. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median annual salary for geologists and geoscientists was $92,040 in May 2020. However, the top 10% earned more than $152,940, and the bottom 10% earned less than $58,360. A person working as a petroleum geologist in Canada typically earns around 203,000 Canadian dollars per year. Salaries range from 105,000 Canadian dollars lowest to 310,000 Canadian dollars highest. It's worth noting that geologist salary may also depend on the location. For example, the average salary for a geologist in USA is around $100,000 and in Canada is around $80,000. Type of geologist. There are many different types of geologists, each with their own area of expertise. Some examples include petroleum geologists. They study the location, distribution, and properties of hydrocarbon deposits, such as oil and natural gas. They typically work for oil and gas companies, and may also work for government agencies or consulting firms. Environmental geologists. They study the impacts of human activities on the natural environment, such as pollution and land use changes. They typically work for government agencies, consulting firms, or environmental organizations. Economic geologists. They study mineral deposits and their potential for mining and extraction. They typically work for mining companies or consulting firms. Engineering geologists. They study the properties of the Earth's materials and how they will respond to construction and other human activities. They typically work for engineering firms or government agencies. Exploration geologists. They study the Earth's surface and subsurface to locate mineral, oil, and gas deposits. They typically work for mining and oil companies or consulting firms. Structural geologists. They study the deformation and structural history of the Earth's crust. They use this information to understand how the Earth's plates move and interact, and to identify areas of potential seismic or volcanic activity. They typically work for government agencies, consulting firms, or oil and gas companies. Volcanologists. They study volcanoes, including their formation, eruption patterns, and hazards. They typically work for government agencies, universities, or consulting firms. Seismologists. They study earthquakes and seismic activity. They use this information to understand the Earth's interior and to identify areas at risk of earthquakes. They typically work for government agencies, universities, or consulting firms. Marine geologists. They study the geology of the ocean floor, including the composition and structure of the seafloor and the processes that shape it. They typically work for government agencies, universities, or consulting firms. Glacial geologists. They study the processes and landforms associated with glaciers and ice sheets, such as moraines, drumlins, and eskers. They typically work for government agencies, universities, or consulting firms. Paleontologists. They study the fossilized remains of plants and animals, including dinosaurs, to understand the history of life on Earth. They typically work for government agencies, universities, or museums. Planetary geologists. They study other planets and moons in our solar system, such as Mars and the Moon, to understand their geology, history, and potential for habitability. They typically work for government agencies, such as NASA, or universities. Scope of geology. The scope of geology is quite broad, as it encompasses many different disciplines and subfields. Some of the key areas of study within geology include Earth structure and composition. Geologists study the Earth's interior and exterior, including the composition and structure of the crust, mantle, and core, as well as the processes that shape the Earth's surface. Earth's history. Geologists study the Earth's past, including the history of life on Earth and the evolution of the planet's climate and geology. Natural resources. Geologists study the location, distribution, and properties of natural resources, such as minerals, oil, and natural gas, and they use this information to inform the exploration, extraction, and management of these resources. Environmental geology. Geologists study the impacts of human activities on the natural environment, such as pollution, land use changes, and climate change, and they use this information to inform environmental policy and management. Hazards. Geologists study natural hazards, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and landslides, and they use this information to understand the risks and to inform hazard mitigation and emergency management. Planetary geology. Geologists study other planets and moons in our solar system, such as Mars and the Moon, to understand their geology, history, and potential for habitability. Geologists can work in a variety of settings such as government agencies, mining and oil companies, consulting firms, universities, and research institutions. They can also work as research scientists, teachers, or consultants, and some geologists work in fields such as environmental law, resource management, or engineering.